if there's someone that's very, very young, might be really religious and like values marriage a lot, and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20, and then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From who?
Would you? From both.
This is so rare.
Anyone
So
really.
rare.
I mean, it happens.
Go on.
My point is, I'm just, yeah, even though it might be rare from what you guys think,
It is.
if it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going.
You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing. You can like separate. See, his Catholic background shines through. He knows. You can't divorce. You can separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive.
Because you got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick in the
wanna
relationship.
People are
physical
just.
abuse.
I mean, look,
people
I'm gonna be
nowadays
honest.
are just pussies.
You know how crazy that is? What's coming out of their mouth right now? I'm gonna let them finish, but I want to know what you think about that. As a woman, right? You're with a guy. He's beating the tar out of you every now and then. Would you endure, or would you get a divorce? Would you see it through? Picture kids in it.
Yeah. So I can understand the logic and the point behind parents, riding it out for the fact that obviously it's better to have two parents in the household. However, what your kids are growing up around and being exposed to is also just as important. So if your partner is, say, constantly arguing with you in the house, is potentially smashing up the house or beating you whilst the kids might be in another room and hear it or see it or anything like that, that's scarring for the child, and that's going to grow them up, like they're going to grow up more messed up seeing and being exposed to that than just being in a single parent household and being raised with love from their whichever parent they're with, say. If we're talking in this case, them with their mother. So I think it all depends on within reason as to what's going on within the relationship and how both adults are handling it, as to whether both should just ride it out or whether they should part ways.
I just think it's crazy that you would expect a woman to just ride it out when her husband. Bear in mind, we know that men are way stronger than women. Give a decent sized man gives a woman a punch in the face, might break her nose, like very easy, break her cheekbones and whatnot. And you just wanted to sit there and ride it out. I mean, if you had a daughter and you knew she was getting physically abused, would you say to her, ride it out? Most relationships, they iron out the kinks. You'll be okay. She's coming to you with like bruises on her breasts, bruises on her arms, bruises on her face, and you say to her, ride it out. Ride it out because it's better for the kids. Would you say that to your daughter?
That man, I'm sorry to say, it would not be,
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what
he
I'd
would
say.
not still be walking, yeah.
He would be better off getting caught by notorious gang leaders than me. If I had a daughter and I knew a guy was abusing her, yeah, I mean, this channel will get shut down because I'll be in prison. There's no way. And by that same token, like, that goes for, like, okay, if I knew that you were with a guy that was beating you up, I wouldn't say to you, ride it out, Sammy, it's okay.
No, because what comes with that as well is clearly somebody who's got anger issues or mentally unstable, and you don't know if one day they might get so angry and end up taking it out on the kids. They might end up hitting the kids.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? So there's just a lot more risk and a lot more harm that can be done.
It's much better to remove the kids from that situation. And yeah, you raising kids on your own is obviously not easy. We know that a lot of the statistics with men in single mother households don't look good. But I don't think you tell the woman to just ride it out. Ride it out for how long? What, a week or a year? A year or 10 years? How long is she taking an arse whipping?
But this is the thing, even if the man wasn't beating her, but they were arguing every day, I still think it's better to remove you know what I'm saying? Don't have both parents in the house, because the kids are growing up around hate and arguments.
It all depends on the context of the situation. I think with arguments, there's a lot of nuance there. It depends on what is going on and what is being said in front of the kids. I think I would be more willing to listen to the endure argument on if it's just verbal. Obviously, that it depends on how crazy the arguments are getting. But when it's physical violence, it's just no. I don't think a man should be putting his hands on a woman, on his wife. I don't think that's... obviously, if she runs at you with a knife or something, then obviously you got to protect yourself. But if she's pissing you off, I don't think you should put hands on her.
No.
And I don't think you should then expect her to endure it and let you get your rage out. And then maybe whenever you feel like it, maybe in a year, 2 years' time when you finish smacking her about, and you feel like being a decent husband, then you go back to normal. I don't think you should expect that to happen. I think you should expect her to leave. I would support any woman that wants to walk away from a guy that was beating her.
Everybody fucking quits. Everybody gives up. It's too hard. I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can fuck up this entire situation based upon me being special. And the reality is people just haven't learned to fucking endure. There have been hard times in relationship. I'm sure you guys had hard times in relationship. Any relationship has hard times. And it
Okay.
is what it is. You need to push through and you need
What if
to
the
endure
kid
because
is
we're in
getting
this
abused?
hold on, because we're in this situation now, like where everybody's just creating this like super nuanced like 1% example of like, well, what if the kid's fucking transgender, black, and abused, and he's a Black Lives Matter supporter? Like, cool, okay, I get like that one fucking
No, but
minute
I'm asking for anyone
situation.
that might be in that situation, what would you recommend?
Did you see what this is? What waffling looks like.
Yeah.
We're literally just talking about a man that is putting his hands on a woman, or maybe the woman is putting her hands on him and she's beating the tar out of him. Either way, we're not talking about a transgender kid. We're not talking about 1% examples. And even if we are talking about 1% examples, she's asking you specifically, even if it is 1%, should that woman endure it? And you're saying yes. You're telling women to stay in a marriage and get fucked up. That's the advice that you're giving. What does that say for the men that are already doing it? For some of the guys that are watching this
Yeah.
that might be beating their wives. For some of the women that might be watching this that are beating their husbands. What does that say?
Okay, here's-
Endure.
I'll tell
Would
you
they
what
give
I'll,
up
I'll tell you what
divorce?
I would
I
do.
don't- that's-
I'll tell you what. hold on.
Endure.
I'll tell you what
Okay.
I would do. If my daughter was in a relationship with a guy and she gets married to him and he starts abusing her a
Kill the
year
guy.
into it, I'm gonna be showing up on their doorstep and teaching him some lessons.
Exactly.
That's what I would do. I also would
but,
not if I didn't have the capacity to do that for some reason, I don't know. I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation, quite frankly. And I understand the argument to endure because I have people close to me who grew up in
You see this guy at the tie, right? When he said that, he sort of like went like, yeah.
Yeah,
So what?
but
You
it
go-
makes no sense.
It makes zero sense. Well, you're going to shout to his house, you're going to teach him a lesson, you're going to shut the door, and then he's going to teach her a lesson.
Yeah, you think he's going to just listen to you go, oh, sorry.
Yeah, and even if he did listen to you in the moment, you're going to shut the door, she's going to go to bed, and she's going to wake up with a pillow over her face.
Because look at the guy in the polo next to him. He was like, I'll kill him. Straight up.
Yeah,
So he wants to kill him, but yet you want her to just ride it out.
it's just dumb.
It doesn't
It's just
make
dumb.
any sense. He thinks he's onto something as well. Like he thinks he's the man.
But every time I see this guy on a podcast, I almost want to tune out. I watch this because I like Destiny. So I wanted to see what Destiny, and he's there with his wife, so I was like, let me see what they both have to say.
and it lasted for periods of time, and it was a phase, and they endured through it, and they ended up raising healthy, successful families to an extent.
So
they
you
weren't the
would say
healthiest
that
families.
to stick in those relationships that might be abusive to everyone involved and a child, if there's a
I'm
child
not
involved?
saying like,
who
hey,
is-
stick
that's
in
an
the relationship and get the shit beat out of
Well,
you
no,
by
no,
a
no,
husband.
you're saying-
I'm
I
not.
think
I'm
you're
not.
right.
It's an
I
extreme.
think
I'm
you
just,
guys-
I'm just asking you what you believe.
I'm
on
just
this one
telling you-
specific thing.
I-
Even
I'm
though
not
it's a
telling
small
you-
extreme thing, I'm just asking you what you think if you should stick in that relationship or not.
It is such an extreme example that I can't give a prescription for what other people should do. There is an element of
How do you guys feel about
value. Hold on. There is an element of value in what he's saying, but all I can tell you is what I would do.
What about if two people get married, they have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating? Do you think they should divorce?
Absolutely.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself
You don't
said.
think
But it wasn't
Jesus,
illegal.
hold on.
Adultery-
Look at that. Absolutely.
There was no hesitation
None.
there. They jumped straight forward. And this is the same thing that happened on Fresh and Fit as well. And it makes zero sense how guys can sit there and say a woman who's being abused by her man needs to stay in a relationship for the sake of the kids. But because a woman cheats for emotional reasons and there's more behind it than just a sexual pleasure, a man should not stay. What about your kids? What about riding it out to be there for your kids?
Oh, Jesus said don't. Jesus said don't ride it out. Now, I'm not throwing religion under the bus, but I do think this is a cop-out argument. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure Jesus would not be okay if you smacking the shit out of your wife. I'm pretty sure Jesus would say, maybe he wouldn't. You know, I haven't read the whole Bible, but I don't think he'd be okay if you smacking your wife. I don't think, in good conscience, he would make her ride it out if some guy was literally beating her day in, day out. Even if it is a 1% example, that is the example given. And this guy in the tie, smiling away, is saying, endure. People are such pussies these days. Can you imagine being married to somebody that comes home and smacks you up for the heck of it? that you can't have an argument with them because they might punch you in the face. No disagreements can be had. Do you know what kind of fearful existence that must be for the people in that?
Eggshells, yeah.
And I don't know what the exact number, what the statistic is of marriages that end because of domestic violence. What I do know is that a lot of domestic violence goes unreported. It does not go reported.
Yeah, because in a lot of cases, I don't know if it gets handled well enough to protect you from them ever actually coming and finding you and getting you,
Yeah.
and it being 10 times worse because you've reported it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. They don't do
It's
enough.
scary.
Like, a lot of these women are afraid. The ones that don't report it, they're afraid to report it because of what might happen. You know, it has to escalate to a certain point before the law's like, okay, now we have to do something. And by that time,
It's too late.
yeah, she could be in hospital, brain damage, God knows what. And I'm not saying that this is like a standard thing across all men. I'm not saying that. I don't know what the statistic is. I do know that a lot go unreported. I don't know the exact number. I don't know exactly what demographic is doing this, what the age ranges are, what culture it might be, but I know that they go unreported. I've had people that I've spoken to personally, and they've told me stuff about their exes, and I've been able to corroborate it, and I've been like, wow, I would have never have guessed. And they're like, well, I didn't want to say anything at the time. It happens. So for you to be like, endure, that's a I don't even know what the word is. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Not only are you giving bad advice to these women, you're kind of emboldening these guys. It's like, oh, she's going to be there. This guy that I look up to on a podcast or that I listen to said so. So she can hold this haymaker because I'm upset. It's like, no, like you don't put your hands on your wife, period.
Jesus
And you
himself
could like
said,
work things through, right?
Jesus himself said in cases of adultery, divorce is
So you think that
permissible.
divorce is worse than physical abuse?
For the
Or
children,
cheating, sorry. You think that
Cheating
cheating
is
is worse than physical abuse?
for the
Sorry.
children, yes.
Absolutely
I think I'm not going to say
Divorce-
this is worse.
divorce
I
is
mean,
worse
I,
for the
I
children.
already, I already
Is
said,
cheating
I already
worse than
said that
physical
if a
Cheating,
woman's
yeah.
getting abused, yeah, I think she should leave. Like, I mean, if it's a brief temper.
So this one here in the suit is going, yeah, I think divorce is worse for the children. But yet you're saying you was quick to jump on this bandwagon of if a woman's cheating, yeah, get divorced. And you're quick to say a woman should stay in the abusive relationship, but you think divorce is the problem. So it's a bit contradictory.
Yeah, I don't get. I just don't understand it. I don't know if he's. I know Chase, the guy in the black and white top there. I know he's religious, so everything he's saying is basing on religion, I guess, to an extent. Even though he's given a more nuanced answer at the very least. But this guy over here,
But he's stopped and he's thinking, because I think he realised he shouldn't have said that because
Oh.
it's going against his original point.
because Chase is controlling the conversation and disagreeing with him partially, right? And then he's stopping. This is not somebody that actually believes what he's saying. This is
No.
somebody that's saying that because it might be the popular thing to say in his circle right now. I don't even know if a majority of red pill guys would agree with this. I don't know. If you're in the comment section, you can tell me. But this is a crazy sentiment to have. There's no way that you think that your wife should stay with you and you're beating her, so she should stay. But if she steps out, then you leave. Either way, the children are left with one parent. So if the logic here is that a single parent household is not good for the child, we'll say single mother because that's what they're saying, right? She cheats and then you tell her to get out because she cheated. Isn't that bad for the child, right? If she takes custody of the children, takes children with her and you're on your own, isn't that still bad for the child? So then if it's bad for the child, why is one being excused and the other one isn't? I mean, one could be life-threatening, right? One could have long-term ramifications physically. The other one, yeah, there's ramifications when someone cheats on you, but I don't think they're in the same ballpark.
Absolutely not. You can't even compare the two.
Can you imagine? You come home and I'm just like, and then you complain and I'm like, what are you complaining about? Jesus said that,
It's okay.
it's okay. Like, well, it's not okay, but you can't divorce me. You can't divorce me over it. But then if you step out, not only am I going to fuck up the house and get rid of you, I'm going to whoop your ass on the way out because
I'm allowed to.
apparently that's the standard.
Temporary thing, like
What if it's mental abuse?
Okay, now
Do you
we're
think
less
if
cut and
it's
dry.
if it's
You are
cheating and
setting
mental
your
abuse?
All right.
child up for failure as well if you stay in like these abusive
Look, that's not
marriages.
true. Look.
Yes, it is because you're literally every single psychologist. We can like Google it right now if you want. Will agree that the patterns that you have at home are going to replicate in their future, right? So if this child gets used to seeing their other loved ones and probably them being talked down upon, being treated badly, they normalize that behavior. So you're setting
It does get passed down generations.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Get some help.
You're setting
But-
them
but
up
to
for
go-
failure in
again,
the
this
workplace
is-
and relationships.
I
in the
just want
future.
you guys to understand this is like the reason why I sit on this podcast.
I like this girl. Both times I think she's raised valid points.
Yeah, if like kids are very impressionable, right? We say this on the channel all the time. That's why we say don't show them things.
It
Don't
is.
try to indoctrinate them into stuff. If you're watching your dad whoop your mum's ass all the time, what effect do you think that's going to have on the child?
No, but even where she's just talking mental abuse, let's say he's mentally abusing her, depending on what the child's hearing. If the child's hearing it, yeah, the child's going to grow up either thinking that's normal and start doing that to other people, or they're going to grow up messed up. If the child's not hearing it but is seeing the mum's mood constantly down, depressed and low because of the way she's being treated, that's also going to impact the child as well, because it is all about psychology and the mental well-being growing up. And if they're not growing up in a happy family environment, that is going to make them just as messed up as having like being in a fatherless household.
Yeah, kids copy what they see, or they
They think it's normal.
yeah, or the girls in the house might see their mum behaving like that and just think that this is how guys treat girls.
For example, this is not going to be a good analogy, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Are you sure you want to do it?
Yes, I do. If a child grows up in a house where they have to sit at the dinner table every day and eat, that's how they're going to grow up, and that's what they're probably going to do in their future household, because that's the norm to them. That's what they've grown up doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas children who haven't grown up with that, it's they might find it a bit strange seeing someone else do it. So
Yeah.
it's just giving an example of
No, that's a fair example.
growing up. Are you sure you want to do it? What was, you don't trust me, Michael?
Some of your analogies are wild. That's a fair example. I think
Yeah.
that like kids, if you raise kids a certain way, they are going to take some of those things that they've learned and they're going to replicate them in adult life. If a boy is watching his mum get mentally or physically abused, it stands to reason that he might mentally or physically abuse women. And if little girls are seeing their mum go through that, they might think it's normal for guys to treat girls like that. Oh, this is how daddy treated mum.
Yeah, and then they're going to tolerate and accept that behavior from someone.
Yeah, and you don't want to perpetuate that cycle.
No.
We're trying to weed out losers like that. We don't
Yeah.
need to add to it.
Podcast and like extol the virtues that I do is because it's like I think we need more righteous biblical masculinity in the world, where you actually have good men that are going to be good leaders of their households.
Oh,
They're not
no.
going to beat their wives or emotionally or mentally abuse them or any of these things. Like that's why I continue to do this podcast with Brian, because we need to make men great again, so that we don't have these situations
no.
continue.
But,
to
Yeah,
But
you're
it-
talking
there's-
about liberal men who would
but there's
get
probably-
epically triggered
Facts.
like
But there's-
snowflakes.
But there's
Facts.
probably
And
gonna
they'd be like, "You're equal to me. I'm gonna beat you up."
But there's probably going to be cases where there are like really, really horrible marriages. And my question is, would you recommend those people to like choose happiness and like divorce and try to like be on their own because being in the relationship makes them really, really unhappy? Maybe even suicidal. Who knows? Do you think they should rather stay just because they?
But you're
swore,
I think they
You're-
should
you're
go. I
taking-
think they should go to
you're
church
taking
and
a-
return to
the
God.
question
Like you're taking a very,
so that
very.
these
Yeah, but I
issues
don't.
go away.
Yeah,
You're
I don't
taking
think
a
the
very-
issues
wait,
would
wait,
go
hold
away.
on.
Let's say if your partner is being really, really, really bad to you, and there's like so many things that he needs therapy, but he's not doing it. Do you think that the wife in that case should stick around for that, even though it might be really bad for her and the child?
But
It's better to stick around
you're
for
taking
that
an
than-
extremely
than
niche.
separating.
Hold on, you're
Yes.
taking an extremely
I don't think it's very
niche
extreme.
example. You are.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well,
I
you
think
are.
there's a lot of
So listen, you're taking an
relationships out there
extremely
that-
niche example and you're blanket statementing it for like the entire solution
I'm not saying
of
it at all.
divorce.
I think that. I think
mean,
it
you
could
are,
be-
though.
No, I'm not saying.
But you're saying like,
no,
what if
wait,
the
wait.
guy is like the wife?
Yeah, I'm asking
and then
you what
like
you
the
think, what
kids
you
are
would
like
recommend for
fucking.
the-
Wait.
They love Black Lives Matter.
But she's not. She's talking about physical abuse. It doesn't matter if it's a 0.1%. She's just saying if you're in an abusive relationship, should you stay, yes or no? The number really doesn't matter here. Yeah, we could argue that people might need to tough out their relationship. I can see an argument for that. There's a lot of people that leave their relationships over dumb shit. There's a lot of that stuff. There's an argument to be made for leaving relationships over things that probably could have been worked out. There's not an argument to be made if your husband or your wife is smacking the shit out of you. There isn't. There's no argument there. Not the kids, not the in-laws, nothing. If your health is at risk because your partner can't contain themselves, then leave. I don't think it's better for the kids to grow up around abusive parents.
Because I never because I never see you conservatives talk about problems like this. That won't,
I'm
like
not a
that is
conservative,
happening.
first of all. How
Okay,
dare
but
you
I never
assume
see-
my
I never
political
see you talk
affiliation?
about problems that
Wait.
might happen in a marriage after
Typically
you
when
get
his
married.
points
I
are
think-
raised,
always
it's
see
the
you
boys
guys
in the
talk
well.
about. I always see you guys talk about how you get there and all these things. But when it actually comes to like happiness and like mental health, I never see you talk about any of it. And like
This is
what to
why-
do in
Mental health is
situations
a
like
side.
that.
Melina, I want to make
Yeah.
the point. This is why I tell people that they need to find God and go to church, because it's like all of these problems that you're describing, if somebody authentically has a relationship with Christ and they're living in alignment with the word, like it's going to mitigate 99%
Yes,
of
but
these
I
issues.
do know conservatives that is going
Yeah,
to
there's
church
fucked
and
up
they
people out
still
there.
abuse their partners.
Physically,
And I'm
wait,
asking-
you,
There's
wait,
fucked
wait,
up
wait,
people.
wait,
Are
wait,
going
hold
to
on, hold on, hold
st-
on.
I'm asking you if you're going to stick
So
up
wait,
for
wait,
those
you
people.
know
Yeah.
And what
conservative.
would you say? Would you tell them to divorce, or would you tell them to
Time
stick
out, time out.
along
You-
in an abusive relationship?
You say you know conservative men right now that are beating their wives?
No, I'm saying that they probably exist, right? I mean, I'm asking you, what would you say to help those
But what would you
cases?
say to liberal men who are beating their wives?
She would say
Yeah, but
don't
it's not
divorce.
the same.
divorce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you divorce.
Divorce.
But like,
Stop
but it's a
beating
lot-
her.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier as a liberal if you're non-religious to just divorce,
Like,
right?
the point-
But
the-
if you're really, really religious, like really heavily, and you have a lot of pressure from your parents and like society, if you, or like the group that you're coming from, the culture, it's going to be a lot harder for you to divorce
But
because
you're
you have the
creating
pressure
like
to
a-
stick.
you're creating
Because
like
you
a-
guys are saying like no matter what happens, you stick in the marriage, even though it might be
But again,
really
to
like
go
mental
back,
damage
Melina,
and
so-
everything,
Which is
right?
why you
Melina, to
choose
go
your
back to the
partners
point,
wisely.
Nev, one second. To go back to the point that I was making, you know, encouraging people to go to church. If somebody's in a situation like that, this is a concern that ought to be brought before the church and taken care of with the elders and the other people that are there. And like, let's say John is beating his wife, right? And his wife comes to the church leadership and she's like, hey, like, this is a problem.
With two
I
black
wanna
eyes,
divorce him.
like, hey,
you know,
this guy's
at that
whooping my
point in
ass.
time, the church leadership can step in and be like, yo, John, why are you beating your wife?
Which honestly, I appreciate them asking. A lot of institutions wouldn't do that.
Well, why does it have to be a church thing? Why can't we just use common sense? Why does the church need to be involved? It's great if you're part of a congregation, you can go there and you can talk to them. That's fine. But some people are not religious, and they're never going to be religious. I can't imagine Destiny ever being religious, or his wife. So if they're not religious, that's not a talking point for them. We use common sense. My partner's beating me up every day.
Yeah,
I
it's
leave.
quite a one-sided look at it. They're not looking at the bigger picture of the reality of the world that we live in. They're just looking at it from one lens.
Yeah, well, we don't need to watch any more of this. This guy over here in the tie, he's an absolute goofball. He at least there's like some back and forth with Chase, even if I disagree with
Yeah.
him. But this guy, he's just talking a whole bunch of nonsense. He's trying to bring Black Lives Matter and transgender and use all these other talking points to make out like she tried to make a very nuanced statement. All she said was, "If you're being beaten, should you leave? Yes or no?" It's not saying that all men are beating their wives. No one is saying that. We're saying if you are being beaten,
Yeah.
then you leave. That's what they're saying.
Because it's also not to say that all kids that grow up in a fatherless household turn out bad.
Yeah. But if your wife cheats, send her to the streets. No problem whatsoever. Forget about the kids. Forget about the whole talking point. If she cheats, she belongs to the streets. But if you beat her ass, you tell her to endure. That's their advice.